you're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration.
We've got some more major developments here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Keir Starmer of the UK coming out with conservative policies, doing a big flip-flop on how he's been operating in the UK. Perhaps Donald Trump twisting his arm and forcing him to change his actions on immigration. We also got Danielle Smith coming out and freezing the industrial carbon tax. She has said enough is enough. Alberta will do it no more. This is going to be a massive blow-up between Mark Carney and Danielle Smith. What is going to happen? We got Rosemary Barton on CBC trying to puff up Mark Carney as usual. We got a bunch of other stuff. Let's jump into this. Here we got Danielle Smith has come out with a freeze on the industrial carbon tax, pushing back against Mark Carney and the Liberals and their destructive policies.
That's why it's so important that we listen to industry concerns and help develop a business environment where they can thrive. And what we have heard from industry is that any further increases to the industrial carbon tax past $100 per ton would be detrimental to their businesses and would diminish their competitiveness in the market. That's why today we're announcing that effective immediately, Alberta is freezing the industrial carbon tax under Alberta's Technology and Innovation Emissions Reduction System, or TIER, at $95 per ton of emissions. This price was set to increase to $110 per ton next year and continue increasing to $170 per ton by 2030. Now, let me be clear, Alberta remains committed to reducing emissions through the development and implementation of new technologies, not unrealistically high taxes, while responsibly powering the world for decades to come. Alberta's industrial carbon tax system, TIER, has been in place since 2007. Our approach has reduced emissions in intensity by over 22% and reduced overall emissions by an estimated 7.2%, while production increased by 90%. We have a reasonable system in place that's working, but any additional increases past $100 per ton will wipe out any of the benefits we've seen. That means fewer jobs for Albertans, less revenue to invest in our public services, and decreased innovation across our industries.
How will Mark Carney respond to this? He's getting pushed right away, right out of the gate. Mark Carney getting dropped into the fire here.
Instead of supporting our industry, Ottawa wants to increase their industrial carbon tax to $170 per ton by 2030. Now, if industry told us that any increase past $100 per ton would be harmful, you can imagine what a $170 ton industrial carbon tax would do to our industry. That would be devastating to Alberta's economy. This is yet another example of Ottawa overstepping into our provincial jurisdiction with reckless policies that damage our industry.
You got to think, too, Mark Carney campaigned as this was his switch. He was going to switch it from get rid of the consumer carbon tax, increase the industrial carbon tax. This was his thing. Is he going to capitulate on this? Is he just going to be like, okay, yeah, I'll just get rid of it? I don't think so. There's going to be a big blowout here between Danielle Smith and Mark Carney.
On top of the anti-industry and anti-development policies passed by Liberal and NDP politicians in Ottawa to cap production, landlock Alberta's resources, destroy our reliable and affordable electricity grid, and ultimately to put Albertans out of work and ruin our economy. With the change in government south of the border, it is essential that we have a reasonable carbon pricing system, not one that will price our industries out of global markets. By freezing Alberta's industrial carbon price, we are acting in the best interest of all Albertans. We are providing certainty, stability, and economic relief to the businesses that contribute so much to all of Canada.
That's just it. Danielle Smith is standing up for the people of Alberta. The Liberals don't care about Alberta. And while we're talking about Alberta, we've got this breaking news. Alberta separation referendum question has been put forward.
So I am very proud to announce that we have an official referendum questions for the referendum petition campaign that we would like to introduce today. So gentlemen, if you could excuse me for a minute. And I'll try to do this without pulling down the signboard. That is the question that will be on the ballot for the Alberta referendum. It states quite simply, do you agree that the province of Alberta shall become a sovereign country and cease to be a province of Canada, yes or no?
I like how there's already an X in the S. They're petitioning for this, so I would expect that. But whether the Liberals like it or not, this movement is growing. They've pissed off people, and now they've let the genie out of the bottle, and they can't get it back in. Next up, we've got Dominic LeBlanc on CTV saying there's going to be significant changes to how they review projects and move things forward more quickly.
The fact that he's saying that we should collaborate in terms of the review approval process for large projects with provinces, one project, one review, not duplicating work that's done by provinces. This is a significant departure from the previous government. And the Prime Minister has, I think, shown a great deal of understanding and openness to support the economy of these resource-intensive provinces.
It took these guys 10 years to figure this out. They're not going to do anything. Let's get real. The same incompetent leadership with the same policies will guarantee the same results. Canadians are clearly okay with that. Sadly, no change, big F you to the West. Smith was clear, actions speak louder than words. This is just more noise. Next up, we got Table Salt posting this one. Canada's trade minister admits there is no progress with trade negotiations with the US. That's right. They're doing nothing. They're not elbows up fighting for Canada.
Again, we've asked ourselves those questions. I've talked to a number of my colleagues in Ottawa about that exact question. It's obvious that we're not going to wait till the obligatory review of the Canada-US-Mexico Free Trade Agreement in 2026 to make progress on the tariffs that have hit us for the last number of months. We have no reason to think, by the way, the Americans are interested in triggering an earlier review of the free trade agreement. They haven't indicated that to us.
Are you kidding me? People have lost their jobs. Get your butt in gear. Negotiate, make a deal.
But they are interested in discussing how Canada and the United States can work on economic and security issues together. And hopefully that partnership will lead to the removal of the tariff. So the question is a good one. I'm not sure we have a clear answer yet.
But the president did seem he seemed to talk well about the agreement, which I think was kind of surprising or perhaps encouraging for Canadians. So does that mean that you would be open to an early review, that you feel that he wants to keep that agreement in place in some way?
Yeah, so I don't want to speak for the president. I did.
No, just what your perception of things.
Well, I had the same impression that you did, Rosemary. He spoke favorably or more constructively about the agreement than perhaps in previous public comments. But the American government isn't respecting the agreement, certainly as we had understood it.
Canadians are getting played both by America and by our own government. Trump is going to get the best deal possible for America, and the Liberals are going to help him do it. Rosie has to try to add some positive spin to it. Yeah, that's what it is. She had to interject to do that. Trump was very clear, nothing Canada can offer to remove the tariffs. That is the way it is. That's not necessarily true. If you rock the boat enough, you come out with a big enough deal, you can get those tariffs removed. Next up, we got Donald Trump making a big announcement here. I don't know if this is the one he was alluding to the other day, but he is talking about the health care.
But starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries, which is what we were doing. We're subsidizing others' health care. Countries where they paid a small fraction of what for the same drug that what we pay many, many times more for. And will no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging from Big Pharma. But again, it was really the countries that forced Big Pharma to do things that, frankly, I'm not sure they really felt comfortable doing. But they've gotten away with it, these countries. European Union has been brutal. And the drug companies actually told me stories. It was just brutal how they forced them. And European Union suing all our companies, Apple, Google, Meta, they're suing all of our companies. They end up, they have judges that are European Union-centric, and they get rewarded $15 billion, $17 billion, $20 billion, and they use that to run their operation. Not going to happen any longer, that I can tell you.
He's basically going to force price increases, get rid of the gouging that's happening on pharmaceuticals around the world, and bring down those prices in America. Once again, Donald Trump is always for America. That's how we should view all of his actions with Canada. The key question is here, is this going to increase prices in Canada for pharmaceuticals? Next up, we've got this clip from Brian Lilly. It says, more talk of the 10% global tariff from Lutnick. When we renegotiate our deal, will this 10% tariff apply on everything, or will Kuzma goods and services be exempt? That is the question here. Seems Donald Trump loves the idea of this tariff, this tax on all goods coming into America, which Americans are going to have to eat that tax.
Is the 10% tariff that we're seeing in the framework for the UK going to be in place for the foreseeable future?
So we do expect a 10% baseline tariff to be in place for the foreseeable future, but don't buy the silly arguments that the U.S. consumer pays. Businesses, their job is to try to sell to the American consumer, and domestically produced products are not going to have that tariff. So the foreigners
who's going to eat the tariffs?
Finally have to compete. They're going to have to compete. What happens is the businesses and the countries primarily eat the tariff. Look, we have 25% tariffs that were set under President Trump's first term. I don't hear a single word, not a single word about those tariffs. No consumers in America, those were set in 2017 and 2018. No consumers in America sit here complaining about those tariffs.
Well, prices have gone up for lots of reasons.
Oh, no. Don't talk about the Biden inflation. That's another whole gig. When we left, when President Trump in 2019 had the lowest inflation in history. So you know that this works really, really well. It works well. These countries and the businesses have to compete. Yeah. They have to cut prices. You've seen it.
She so desperately wants to speak, but she's not going to speak up. It comes down to it. It's a tax on the American people. It's 10% because most businesses are not going to eat that. They'll just increase their prices. Maybe some companies will eat it for the short term to not try to disturb their base of customers. But if this is long term, they'll just increase their price 10%. So if Americans want to buy certain things they can't get in America, they have to pay more. In other news here, we got Keir Starmer of UK changing his tune completely after doing a deal with Donald Trump. It says if you want to live in the UK, you should speak English. That's common sense. So we're raising English language requirements across every main immigration route. And with that, he's got this big announcement here, as Colin Rugg has pointed out. Keir Starmer wants to take back the borders of the UK. It's become an island of strangers and essentially cracking down on immigration in the UK, a place where open immigration has been more rampant than in Canada.
Let me put it this way. Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth. You're not championing justice or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration significantly. That's why some of the policies in this white paper go back nearly 3 years. Why I told the Labour Party conference, taking back control is a Labour argument. And why, most importantly of all, inward migration is already falling with this government.
Wow. Did Trump twist his arm and say, hey, it's time to clean things up in the UK? I don't know. Maybe this was a secret part of that deal he just did with the UK. Is this guy accidentally becoming a decent politician for the UK? That's what it really seems like here. He's finally seeing the writing on the wall, just too late. I thought this reply here was interesting. It says the mayor of London, the mayor of Birmingham, the mayor of Leeds, mayor of Blackburn, they're all Muslim. Sheffield, Muslim. Oxford, Muslim. Luton, Oldham, Rockdale, Muslim. 4 million Muslims out of 66 million people in England, 3,000 mosques in England, 130 Sharia courts. That is scary. Once there's talks of Sharia courts in Canada, we know it's dangerous times. 50 Sharia councils. Just so it's clear, I haven't fact-checked this post, but doing a quick check on it, it seems mostly correct, the amount of mosques. Not all of these towns or cities have current Muslim mayors, but they have had Muslim mayors in the past. Some of them have switched. Either way, it is shocking to have so many Muslim leaders in a country with 66 million people with only 4 million Muslims. Next up, we got new legislation being proposed in America America that would extend the Snowbird's visit days from 182 to 240 days because Donald Trump's tariffs have driven away so many Canadians from America.
It's a good thing. When we look at what's been happening since the change of the administration, everything has been very negative, folks. Negative focused on the Canadian market and the border. We've heard a lot about people having issues at the border. We've been introduced to the registration process. And certainly the press has created a situation where there's a great fear of Canadians entering the United States. And what we have now is where airlines are cutting flights, and southern United States in particular are feeling the sting. That the reality is less people are going, less money is being spent, and there's great concern that those economies are going to be greatly affected. Certainly the initial take that we saw is the border communities are being affected. People aren't traveling to the United States at the border. So what this is, you know, like most things we've seen, there's the door slamming and then the door opening. So we've seen the slam. Now they're opening it a little bit. Now, it's interesting to note that this legislation is a repeat of previous legislation. Initially, this legislation was introduced in 2023, but it didn't really go anywhere. Maybe this time it will, because there's certainly a fear. I mean, we're hearing about, you know, the prices of real estate falling and people wanting to sell their properties. And I think what's happening now is that, you know, people on the other side of the border are starting to see the reality of what's in fact occurring.
Ripple effects from the tariffs. Will it be worth it? What will happen long term? When we look back 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, will all of these tariffs that Trump has put in been worth hurting the reputation between Canada and America? Globally, we're seeing a lot of moves. Donald Trump shaking things up with the drug prices, pharmacare, Keir Starmer wanting to crack down on immigration. Mark Carney is being dropped in the middle of all of this. His net zero policies do not align with any of this. What will happen when the House reconvenes?